Quiet on the set. Here we go. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hello, everybody. I'm DearMYRTLE, your not-so-retired friend in genealogy. Welcome to Book Club. We are tackling David Hackett Fisher's Albion Seed, 4 British Folkways in America. Now, we've got a lot to share with you today. Just a few little housekeeping things to share. This is the link to the book itself. It's going out there now. You can get it from Amazon.com. And it's in Kindle format, audio format. In fact, I listened to the chapter, sped up a little bit. The guy talks slowly on the audiobook. I listened to this chapter. It took me 2 weeks to get through it and to rewind and say, what did he just say about marriage courtship practices? That just doesn't make sense. And that's the whole point of our getting together in this particular book club. Normally on Mondays with Myrt and everything, we talk about genealogy research methodology. We're putting that to the side and we are deep diving into 4 different migration groups and their social history, their cultural practices, their mannerisms, their way of doing business as a community, whether it's a city council or a county government or a state government, whatever it is. And we're talking about the 4 British folkways coming to America at its earliest time period. All right. Now, a little bit more. Let me share just my screen, and we're going to pull up the homework. Now, homework gets submitted, as I mentioned. Here it is on Google Drive. Copy that. Get it up here. Okay. Well, Myrt can do this. This is what our homework looks like. And I just wanted you to see what it looked like in Google Drive. It's a PDF, so my page 4 and 5 is the same as your page 4 and 5. And you can just close a Gemini if you wish, and we'll zoom in. And from time to time, as Christine, who's our point person today, as she's talking specifically about the East Anglia group, to Massachusetts, those Puritans that arrived 1629 through about 41. And that, look how many pages of the book we had to read. And then we are only discussing certain specified folkways because there's so much in this book. This is what I would anticipate each of us will begin to develop, is some kind of a spreadsheet similar to this, where you're making notes about the dress style, the food, the housing. I focused on that in my homework, for Puritans versus what we'll tackle next, the Virginia Cavaliers, etc. And there's make plenty of room for notes, because it's by comparing and contrasting things as innocent as housing that make this seem useful, in my mind. I don't have those early Puritan ancestors. Christine does. I also wanted to mention the term folkways. David Hackett Fisher said that he was using that phrase and that definition from a book called Folkways, a study of sociological importance of manners, customs, mores, and morals. The author of that book is a professor, poli-sci at Yale. You all who are watching live are attendees, and you may post comments and questions. Already the panelists have submitted their homework, and we are looking at page 3 of 12. And from time to time, Hillary, if you would share that link again with the YouTube group, that would be good. The whole point of this is to encourage you to think about the social history. Buy this book if you have ancestors from any one of these for migration groups. All right, now I'm going, first in our homework is Christine's work. And I have to be good, and I have to get all the panelists up on the screen. And basically, Christine, you've got the hardest job, kiddo, because you're the first one out of the starting gate. But you get to talk about your ancestors and what you know about their history and how we may find out more about the social history of this migration group.
Okay.
Take it away.
Thank you, and welcome everybody. My name is Christine Charbot, and I am a librarian by trade. So I wanted to talk, before I really delve in, yes, I did put sticky notes all in my book. You can't see the highlighting, which I also did, but it's my book. I would, before we really get started with any of these materials that we are referencing, one of the most important things that you are going to want to do is to read any of the prefatory information that comes in the beginning. Look at the list of illustrations, look at the list of tables, because there's a lot of meat in, not only in this book, but in some of the other books that I'm going to be talking about. So it's really important that you don't miss anything. There is so much. And I did listen to the chapter. I will continue to listen to the chapters. I also have it in ebook, and I have the physical copy. For me, I don't do well reading on a screen. So that's kind of my, if I'm waiting in line, I'm reading it on the screen, but I like to annotate everything. So I will tell you that. I also, well, I guess I can get to that when we get to the Great Migration. So what started me interested in the East Anglia thing is I think it's the 14th great-granddaughter of Dolar Davis, who came here in 1634, and which was a huge shock to me, because I thought I was really, hardy peasant stock from Italy and Scotland and Ireland, and then lo and behold, there was a line there that I missed, but I found it and had the good fortune to be gifted this book by my husband, who is also a genealogist, and also take some classes from Robert Charles Anderson, who wrote the books on the Great Migration Project. So I started trying to, I worked my way backwards, but I soon realized that there was a lot of information that was being presented that didn't make sense in my 21st century brain. And I thought, I need something else. I need to understand what's going on here. I don't understand this. And that's where this book came in huge handy, because it talks about a lot of things that I didn't realize. Now, when I grew up, I am a Massachusetts native, grew up and learning about the Pilgrims, with the quintessential, tall black hats and the like, during Thanksgiving. And one of the things that I didn't realize, which I noted as one of the curiosities in reading this book, is that the Puritans believed in true love. It wasn't just, they have land, we want their land. I have a daughter, you have a son, let's get married so we can take the land. That's not what it was. They really believed that marriage was a crucial part of the marriage contract. And in the book, Fisher does reference somebody who, even though the father approved of the match, the daughter was like, and the father was like, well, okay. They were Calvinists, which is another thing that I didn't realize when they came over. So, you learn a lot when you're kind of reading through some of the stuff that Fisher is putting through that may change some of the ways that you look upon your ancestors. They had healthy sex lives. They weren't prudish. They didn't like anything weird. No bestiality, no, perversity. But they weren't, they didn't look upon it as like, oh no, we're not going to do that, which is another thing that I learned about the Puritans. Naming of the, yes, ma'am.
That's one thing. You don't have to call me ma'am, but you do have to bow down in my presence, Christine. That's one big thing. We think of Puritans as being very straight-laced. And it's exactly these misconceptions that I don't know how they got in our brains, but they did. And these very specific words that you used regarding sexual behavior are some of the very specific things that the author does speak about. And it is necessary for us to study this. And I'm intrigued by it, even though I don't have New England roots, because it makes me then think, well, how liberal were my people, my, Quaker ancestors, etc., in Pennsylvania? So I have to wait till our third session for that. But it's by comparing and contrasting the things you're talking about that David, I'm calling him David affectionately, he's ruined my late night sleep habits because I'm listening to the audiobook. It's intriguing, but I just wanted to interject. It really is busting through our preconceived notions, and that's a goal we have here.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll be quiet.
No, that's fine. I did have to, I would like to talk a little bit about, I mentioned they had their strict Calvinist beliefs. I had to go back and do a little bit of reading on John Calvin. This is my problem. I'm an eminent footnote chaser, and every time I hear something I don't understand, then I have to go down the rabbit hole and figure out where that came from. One of the things that I would suggest strongly, if you have ancestors in this time period that came over, is to follow their religious leaders. Robert Charles Anderson on the New England Ancestors has his talk from 4 years ago, and I think somebody can probably put the
I'll go look for it.
Link in the chat.
Yeah.
It's called Conventicles to Companies to Congregations.
Okay, I'll go find it.
And this was very much, the Puritans, it was very much a religious movement. There was also a lot of stuff going on in England that was causing people to go to Amsterdam and to leave England and all the things that entails. And one of the things that is very hard for my Davises was to know when my immigrant, I know when we think he came because we see him in the records, but what was more helpful to me was to follow the religious leaders because they kind of all came and went with each other. And you'll see that when you start looking, because this isn't a time of published vital records. This is a time of church records. And fortunately, if you have ancestors at this time in this part of the country, Massachusetts keeps fabulous records. They have got a ton of records. A lot of them are up on Family Search. If you don't have a membership to American Ancestors, I highly suggest that. I don't get paid for saying that. It's just, they have an enormous collection. It's well outside of Massachusetts, but well worth the money. I would say, I just lost my train of thought. I would say that it is definitely, yeah, and there it is up on the screen, is definitely worth, there's thousands of videos and all sorts of databases and all sorts of information, and very easy to get lost in there. And it's a nominal fee. I think it's still less than $100 for a year. And they have a lot of information on their site that will help you. They also have, if not the oldest, one of the oldest genealogical periodicals in this country, their New England Historic and Genealogical Register.
It is the oldest, and it predates
so.
anything that Family Search did.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's definitely worth the money to support this organization. Go ahead. I'm looking for events, and there are so many videos. I can't even scroll through them all.
Yeah, if you do Robert Charles Anderson, you may find it. I found it on the Straight Out YouTube because they have a YouTube channel.
Okay, I'll go look for that while you keep talking.
So I will say, Robert Charles Anderson's books, The Great Migration, the databases are on American Ancestors, but the prefatory material at least last time I checked, which was about 2 weeks ago, is not. And he does include in his first volume of, like, this one is the volume 1620 to 1633, and it will have all the sources that he used, which then, of course, I went running trying to find all of his original sources. It has maps. It has all sorts of what is in there, and more importantly, what is not. He did not issue errata for these books. He published a Great Migration newsletter. And in that newsletter is where you're going to find things that he corrected. For example, my Doler Davis is listed as having a wife and children that came over in the year after he got here, and those are actually the wrong people. Which you wouldn't know that. He mentioned it in the talk before he passed. I was in, as I said, last fall. He passed this past February, I believe, and he was in the talk, and the people that Houghton said were Doler Davis's family were in fact not. So,
you know, this is a big thing to underscore. And you and I mentioned this in the green room. You brought it to my attention. I would have thought because of Mr. Anderson, and I am using that out of respect. I would have thought that Mr. Anderson's Great Migration book was the end all. Although I know as soon as you publish something, they find something new. And when you talk about the errata, to have it be known that it's published in the newsletter, not as a supplement that can be inserted in the back of an existing book or now appears in the next printing of the 3-volume set, etc., whatever it is very, very important. And as Christine has pointed out, from her own family tree. So keep that in mind. Keep that in mind, folks.
And I would suggest one of the nice things about the newsletter, because it was kind of a companion to when he was publishing the books, he goes into so much more detail. So much more detail. I mean, these were essentially kind of like mini biographies, and some of them had a lot of information, but there was just so much more. And you know, Pat, I was mentioning to you in the green room, I've got 4 4-drawer file cabinets filled with information on this family and on this project, just on my own stuff. So, you know, there's a lot of meat there and a lot of things to have. But back to the Fisher book, that's where David Fisher comes back into it, where you can then look here and kind of find like the flesh on the bones. You know, what happened, you know, in the gap, you know, born in 1600, died in 1673. Well, what all was going on in the middle of that? And, you know, that's where social history can really lead us to new sources and really show us different things that we may or may not have realized even existed. And back in the beginning, Mr. Anderson was actually one of the genealogists on a newsletter called The Genealogist back, I want to say it was in the 80s.
Yeah, it was pretty early, yeah.
And that is, I'm not sure if that's on Family Search or on the HisGen website. I can't remember off the top of my, I printed
Definitely
them all out.
on HisGen, that's for sure.
Because Paula Stewart Warren had done a talk on the importance of periodicals, which then got me herring off to see what I could find, what other things Bob Anderson had written, because he was prolific and brilliant. Anyway, so I did go for that, and there's just a lot out there to find. It's a lot more than just let me find the records.
In your homework, you talked about some of the main characteristics of, and the cat is getting in on the conversation now. I must have left the door open. Sorry about that. About some of the the ways they did things in the old country that persisted in the behavior and manners and the social order. Can you talk to me about some of those that you thought were pretty important?
Sure. So I did annotate there on the social order. So this group of folks that came over were the gentry. They weren't the aristocracy and they weren't the labor class. So they had, some money. They were, comfortably middle class, as we might say today. They had some money. They had some skills. They came over and they were able, and they came over in family groups. This is one of the only ones that came over. Now, in my other family, I have famine Irish, and that was a lot of chain migration, where one or two would come over and then they'd start bringing the rest of them over once they got settled. But this wasn't that. This was like family units coming over, which is also really nice because chances are they knew each other in the old country, and then they came to the new country and kind of set up these, similar legal systems, similar ways of operating that they did back in the old country.
Mm-hmm. And this part of England where they come from has some, we'll learn from Hillary's homework, some of those same things persisted into the 20th century, well, late 19th century. Okay, Kat, you can be part of the show. You're very important and we love you. They persisted then in that area, as Hillary will point out. She's coming up shortly. But this was the basis. I mean, you're not suddenly going to, as I said during Mondays with Myrt, if you grew up in this society in the 1600s in England, you're not going to take up clogging for some reason when you get to the American continent. It isn't like you're free to do something different. The thought process was so ingrained, wouldn't you say?
Right. I would. And I would also say that, and Fisher does point this out in the book, a lot of what makes New Englanders still exists. And I mean, it kind of made me chuckle as somebody that was born and raised in New England. I picked up on a lot of the things that he points out, like the fact that we still eat boiled dinner, which is like corned beef and boiled vegetables and cabbage. And probably maybe it sounds terrifying if you don't like cabbage, but it's something that I've eaten my whole life and not really given it much thought. Also the weather, which I didn't put on my homework, but the weather, and we'll see that in the other folkways, has a huge impact on how the culture is. New England the weather is pretty harsh, and right, like this morning I woke up and it was 30 degrees and it's October.
Yeah.
And we're getting snow in the mountains. So, I mean, we're up for an early, hopefully not too early, but we're up for an early winter. We still venerate people of a certain age. That is very much in the culture. There's a lot of respect to be given to our elderly folks. We are still huge into learning. And the thing that was interesting to me is that the Puritans had a lot of equality between the sexes, whether it was by education or treatment or contracts and things that, that persists to this day. So we've always been heavy into education, heavy into those kinds of things, which is not always been the way. And I think it'll make for an interesting discussion subsequent to this one.
Yeah, definitely. One of the things that under child rearing, the breaking the will of a child, very strict upbringing. And that even extended into the thing of the stocks and the pillories in the village square and stuff like that for disobedient adults who didn't walk the line. I think that is fascinating. That does not exist in my family. In fact, my daughters are very liberal with their. I would never explain 20 times what you just did to your brother was not reasonable. It was like, cut that out. So maybe I have some Puritan in me after all. Who knows? I don't know. But I'm just saying that. The author went into great detail about children and how they were to behave, and So you do want to read more in this chapter about that. Now, you did include a couple of websites, the Mayflower Society, and these are all clickable links in your homework, guys. That's why I love PDFs. Come on, baby girl. I got to do my job. There we go. And tell me about the Commonwealth of Massachusetts State Archives.
Okay. So the State Archives website is a fantastic resource. You are going to need to read cursive, old cursive, which is why I kind of put that with Kip Sperry's book about reading early American handwriting, particularly court hand, which is another thing altogether. But I would suggest that you get the book before you read the things on the site, because there are little squiggles in there that are actually legal terms that you will miss if you don't have the book.
Yeah,
you'll miss it. You won't know what it means, and it can change the whole meaning of a document.
Yeah, this is something that AI hasn't figured out. When transcribing, it can handle and appreciate abbreviations and subscript, or superscripts and things like that. But the little squigglies that you're talking about in these old colonial New England, it's not doing too well on that yet. It hasn't been trained.
Yeah. So the Plymouth Colony records and some of the Mass Bay Colony records and a lot of colonial records are in the Felt collection, which is in on the Mass Archives website. Also there is what we call the TAN books. At one point, communities were asked to take all of their vital records and submit them for review, or not review, but for compilation into these books. And they are from whenever start to 1849, sometimes to 1850. And there should be on that site somewhere, I usually Google it, Mass Vital Records to 1850 is what I do, and then it comes up.
Because the easy ones that people who are beginning genealogists can relate to, they can relate to 1971 and work backwards. And that's what shows up first on this site under genealogy digital records. So you're recommending even Google is our friend. You're right.
Yeah. So I just do MA space VR 2, like TO, 1850. They don't have a complete collection. I think they're missing Barnstable, they're missing a Cambridge, maybe Boston, maybe Roxbury. They're missing some of the big ones, but they do have a lot, and they're all printed. Now, that being said, again, two things. First, there are mistakes, because you're only as good as the people doing the transcription. So that's first thing. Second thing, again, every book, these are things that came from cemetery records, family Bibles. This is before the time of certified vital records. So you're looking at birth registers. Now, fortunately, Family Search has put a lot of the back end where these things came from online. The other unfortunate thing with the TAN books is that they took all of the families out of order. So they made a nice alphabetical list, for example, for my Davises, but they took them out of the family group. So you don't know Phineas Davis was the child of this person, but then this person, there may be 17 people with that last name, with that first name. So as I always suggest with any kind of transcription, if you can get back to the original record and get back to it. It'll save you some time.
That's what they did with Griffith's valuation over in Ireland. Is the first run through, everything was just straight alphabetical by surname and then given name, and so you didn't get the neighborhoods and stuff. And they had to redo it because reasonable researchers like you were up in arms over it. I'm glad to hear that we're pointing out the venerated colored, I'm putting that in parentheses, books, which was the printed version of it, are available on the Massachusetts website.
And they're also available on Internet Archive.
Oh, good to know.
Yes, and Internet Archive is also another wealth, along with Google Books and Hathi Trust. Lots of places that you can find those old things in dribs and drabs. So
that's where Google helps us, because it knows what's where, basically.
Right.
All right. Do you have anything you want to say before we let Hillary speak, and then Maria? They have done their homework, and I have some things to share too. This is just phenomenal to get someone like you who has roots and has done the deep diving in that area in this brief period of time. I mean, 45 minutes. Sometimes we go over 15 minutes. To have you here to talk about that. What about the Mayflower silver books? Are they reliable, or what about their pink books?
They are. They have a rather steep learning curve. Like, you can't just snatch one off the shelf, open it up, and like, voila. Again, it's like, here I am with my librarian, my reference librarian hat. Read the prefatory materials. Your reference librarian is your friend. Genealogy librarians, sure, family search, chat would probably be people that would be able to help you navigate through those. They're not easy. They can be done, but they're not easy. And the research is ongoing. So that's why I put that to the society, because it always helps to kind of get a sense of what they're doing. Because again, things change and things get missed, and then they get fixed. And so, always kind of test your assumptions. I only have one other thing to say before, but go ahead.
Go for it.
I was just going to say that this map is only there because a lot of people think New York is part of New England, and it is not. But what is also not part of New England that is on that map is Vermont. At the time that we're talking about, Massachusetts and Maine were the same territory. And Vermont was largely part of New York. So that being said, just kind of keep your wits about you when you think you know where people are going, and make sure you are in the right area, because the boundaries and things change all over the place.
So those of you who are watching this on the YouTube side, doesn't it help to know that there's a huge video library at American Ancestors to help explain some of the subtleties of things like how to use this or that book collection? I don't know why they decide to call them pink, silver, and tan, but they do. You're getting a lot of background people in and out, Christine. So that's why I've been trying to change the view for the recording, because I don't have the permission of those individuals to be recording. So I'm glad you blurred your image. I have constraints that Google puts on me. This is the free YouTube channel. You need more in-depth study of just the peculiarities of the pink books or the silver books.
And there are so many resources. I mean, this is something that has been studied and studied and studied and studied and studied. And I'm going to shut up now so that the other folks can have an opportunity to say something. But you will not lack for materials if you go looking.
Yes. Thank you, Christine. But when Christine and I were alone at first in the green room, and she and I were remarking about how unusual it was that how the homework came together. And we're going to talk to Hillary next, and I'll pull up her homework, and I'll have Christine go to the wings, if I can remember how to do that. I hardly ever do, and let Maria rest. So even though you were away, Hillary, you managed to submit some homework, and you had some very interesting takes on this migration group. Shall we talk about it?
Yeah.
And by the way, you're getting kudos from the attendees, Christine. Very informative. Thank you very much. This book it does reveal assumptions that we didn't realize were our preconceived notions or assumptions. So thank you, Christine. All right, what have we got here?
Yeah, well, I'm coming at this from a different angle, because obviously I haven't got New England ancestors. I've not researched in that, and I've not only done a certain amount of earlier research even in England. But my husband does have ancestors that came from Norfolk, and from Lincolnshire and that area of the country. So I have done research in that area of the country in England from where these people will have originated. And I was quite interested. One thing we were just talking about, the fact that they're treating women and men the same. In Norfolk, a lot of their parish records, they actually have the woman's maiden name included in a lot of their parish records, which a lot of other places in England don't. So maybe some of that was a takeover from, maybe they were doing that before some of these people went over to the New England and that. And I shared the fact that somebody was lodging with somebody who, and then they actually married this person's one of these person's daughter. And I noticed with New England as that a lot of the people, they kept certain things in the families. Sort of, there would be, they would be to some extent they were married because they already had some connection with that family. This person that I mentioned, this Robert Roslin, he had a sister, Anne, and Anne actually married his wife's brother when he was after he was widowed, so they actually kept quite a bit in the family there because we had brother and sister marriages with that one.
And I remember reading that thought that, I mean, they didn't have like apartments for single people in Plymouth.
No, people did have to lodge. I mean, it was still people lodged in England as well as being over there. They were put with a family if there was somebody that were on their own. And I'm trying to think. I had a few other things that I mentioned as well about.
I love this
marriage.
Part. Oh, okay, go ahead.
Yeah, the marriage. The fact that the marriage was looked on more as a contract between the individuals rather than a religious, which I felt, it wasn't until 1800s that we would have been having this type of marriage in England, and even when they introduced register office and general registration of births, marriages and deaths in England, the people still would have to get married. If they wanted a religious ceremony, they would have to get married in the Church of England, even if they were a non-conformist religion. So they were sort of forced certainly for a number of years. I can't remember when it changed, but this was all. This was such that legally they couldn't get married in their own churches. So they might choose to have a non-religious marriage simply because they didn't want to get married in the Church of England, which was not their church. So or whatever. So.
I was visiting with Christine. We talked about the importance of learning.
Oh yes.
Talk to me about that from your side of the pond.
Yeah, because I believe, as far as I can tell, at that time there were a lot. There were unless you were relatively well off, you probably were not going to be taught how to read and write. You had to pay for education, which the poorer people couldn't do. But this group that went over, being the slightly more well off and having, and they seem to have a very high percentage of the people were educated, could read and write, compared to some of the other groups that may have gone over, and that, you know, all right, if you were really high up and you were part of the aristocracy, you were probably had a chance to learn to read and write because it would almost be expected. But if you were one of the labouring classes, you probably weren't. It's
you were too busy scrambling for a living.
Yeah.
This sentence of yours, this bullet point is important to me, and I know that Christine, it was our point person and had most of our time, and that we only contribute a smaller portion. But this desire for a harmonious community, given the uncertainty in their home country. I mean, they left because they were uncomfortable. They weren't coming here, as Christine said, for more land. It wasn't about let's have a lot of land and things like that. They wanted a peaceful community, and they were very harsh when people didn't toe the line. I mean, in my lifetime, the only time I ever saw a pillory or a stock in the town square was when I went to New England. It's some reenactment play. I don't know where I was, but anyway, you didn't find it in other places. And it was reflected in the way they dealt. That is a very, very powerful bullet point. Thank you for sharing that.
They probably had stocks and that in the villages where they came from. I would have suspected.
Yeah,
because we did have stocks and that people, you know, I mean, even today, I think in some other parts of the country, certainly in the New Forest, which will probably be an area I might be talking about next time. They have their own sort of like local, what they call verderers there, which is a sort of a local court thing that decides and penalties if you don't do so. You're expected to do certain things. So they probably have things like similar things like that in East Anglia.
So there was just like they were strict with their children, they were strict in a physical manner to keep people in line.
Yeah.
Christine, am I being fair in characterizing it that way? Let me pull you up here on that because you're really the expert on this.
You know, I do think we're kind of crowdsourcing the discipline, if you will.
Yeah.
You know, if I can use modern day terms to discuss that, but I'm also reminiscent of, you know, the wealth of literature that came out of this Silas Marner and the Scarlet Letter and the Crucible, and, you know, they weren't portrayed as like really like Hakuna Matata, like whatever. It was, So I think that's a fair perception.
Okay, we're good. Anything else, Hillary, before we go to Maria?
No, I think that's all.
Okay, so Maria, the world's greatest neighbor, and now we both moved away from the neighborhood, also contributed homework, and she has a different, it's amazing, like we said, a completely different entry. Talk to me about Hannah Bradford, Dr. Hannah Bradford, which implies education.
That's right. Well, the first person I started studying, I was not happy with some of the sources. So with my time, I quickly went over to Dr. Hannah Bradford, and I was really interested in some of the things that were said about her, is how she really got along with her father. And obviously in the book, we learned that there was laws saying that the parents had to teach the children, which is excellent. All the children, not just the male children, all the children. And she would apparently have conversations with her father. And when she was married to her husband, I think must have been also very supportive, because she became the only medical person in the area. And she's noted to actually kind of mentor the first doctor in Connecticut. So She, but in my family line, I know back, education has been like very, very much a huge part of my family tradition. So I'm not sure how much that goes back to them, but very grateful to learn more about her.
And what Maria is known for in this group are very detailed source citations. So she's referring to birth, marriage, and death database at Ancestry to get the actual birth, marriage, or the birth and death date, as opposed to trying to read that tombstone on Find a Grave, which she has dutifully cited. She even on page 3 or whatever, zoomed in. So, I mean, you actually can read a couple of the letters here. Yeah, the very old cemetery, the Wyndham Center Cemetery there. One of the things that Maria and we would have discussion from the very first day on my front porch. I took a break from weeding. She saved me from the weeds of the front gardens. Previous owners were very prolific gardeners. And we talked about research, and particularly Eastern Europe, in her case, on that. And I was like, good luck. But she excels at doing the very thing that Christine likes to do, and that Hillary likes to do, and that old Myrt points us to, and that is get it from the best source. And the best source could be a letter in the family Bible. That may be the only source that survived on something. But another letter might not be as reliable. And it's not 3 things that prove something. It's you have to develop an understanding as a genealogist to look at all of the data you can find on an ancestor. And that's methodology. And you're excelling in the methodology of crafting citations. In fact, I have been known to consult with you on the phone about citations if you needed something. We do need to tell people about the problem of appearing in a video screen. So I'm going to put you in the wings for a little bit, Christine, so that you can do that. You are muted. Okay, so thank you for your part. It was short and sweet, but very appropriate. So you started with the Find a Grave, which you have cited here on this last page. And then you went to the effort to look at more detailed information that would prove or disprove some assertions on the Find a Grave website. Very good. By the way, now we're getting feedback, Hillary, on yours, where Broken Branches is saying, I appreciate Hillary's perspective, as I also don't have ancestors from this specific background, but it's so interesting to learn about different topics. Thanks, Hillary. So good job there. Okay, so I went a different tack as well. And I'm bringing you back, Christine. Hopefully that's okay. And I went, this was used in the book, but I went and got my own copy of it. And here's the citation about it. It's from this page of Wikipedia about Puritans. I wanted to get to the clothing with examples of the dark clothing and the hat and the, cinched up collar. And those were lacy collars, weren't they? They weren't just white plain collars. But anyway, they're right up to the neck. I relate to pictures really well. I think I'm reverting back to my early childhood development days. And the thing that always strikes me is things that David Hackett Fisher noticed about how, the typical New England salt box homes. This isn't typical because it does have that overhang, but this is the Stanley Whitman house in Farmington, Connecticut, that was finished and still survives. It was finished in 1660, and there's the link so that you can go see it in its full glory. This was fun because I already knew about the Corwin House in Salem, Massachusetts, and I looked all over to find a picture of something not in the book. These that replicated from that region of England, that same gabled roof and roof line and the center doorway in both. This is from Boxted Hall, and if you click, you'll see it in context. You can actually rent that for a wedding if anybody's planning a wedding. Now, I always allow myself one thing to copy from the book, and that was this image, the Chelmsford, England, Essex, England pattern of settlement for a town, where there was a market square. Can you see this okay? I probably should zoom in more. A market stall, and this is the town square, and really it's just a widening of the road that goes through town. And then the homes were built on the side, but way out in the meadows to the surrounding the homes, to the back were the fields, the gardens, the meadows, the orchards, etc. And this was an adaptation. This was my drawing of a typical New England town. And we think of a town square where there'd be the market every week. The church and the homes would be on the square, but they weren't big, huge cathedrals. Like I've been to Cologne in Germany. I mean, when I stood to the west side of the Cologne Cathedral, anticipating walking in, I about fell over backwards, literally, trying to look to the very top spire. That's completely different style and attitude about the building of a church. It's absolutely gorgeous, but it's just as beautiful, the churches that you will see in a typical old town, the old part of town, as and so in my illustration, I said I adapted it from page 182. And then a couple of interesting things, we were mentioning their attitudes about marriage and intimacy, and these are two things that I could bring to the table about courtship practices. I had never heard of this kind of a thing where the potential bride and groom could speak to each other through a tube in front of the fireplace in the kitchen or in the main room, whatever it was. So that was the assertion from Ripley's, that they used this long wooden tube, and it was called a courting stick, so they could whisper sweet nothings in the ear. And when I knew about bundling before, but when David Hackett Fisher was talking about it in the book, I was looking for something to illustrate that. And I actually purchased this, so I own this little book, got it from Amazon.com. This is just the cover of it, and it does happen to mention Pennsylvania Germans, but it's the same concept, where prior to marriage, the couple, I guess you could figure out if the guy would snore. I don't know what the deal was. But the bundling, he was encapsulated, and so was she, and there's a bundling board that goes between them in the bed. And, it's just, it is what it is. I'm just letting you know about it. And these were my contributions to homework for today. How are we doing? We only went over about 11 minutes, and that was because we had the introduction. So I think we did pretty well, guys. I honestly think we did. Thank you very much. Let's see, so Hillary's saying she looked for salt block houses in England, and they have all but disappeared. You have to look for I couldn't find a salt box example. You'd have to look on a website that has like etchings from the earlier time period. Gwen is pointing out there's a Windham Connecticut and a Windham, New Hampshire. And yeah, they use some of the same names. Yeah, for their towns. I mean, if you're going to create a new place, why not call it something interesting like that makes you think of home? All right, have we had fun or what, guys?
Indeed.
We actually put tons of work into this much of a discussion. It's just like, there's so much. And now we're going to meet in 2 weeks in this same time period. And who's up next? Is it Hillary?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, Hillary. And what is your topic?
It's the Virginia Cavaliers and Indentured Servants, I think.
Okay.
Rightly. Yeah.
You're right.
From the South Coast, so from my area.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So let's all get our audiobooks going. That they had an audiobook made this so easy for me to refresh my memory on this. Since I have taught entire courses on this. Yes, you wanted. Okay, I'm hearing somebody speak. What was that? Okay, no problem. Nothing left to say, but thank you. Thank you to our attendees for speaking up and participating. And those of you who are viewing this afterwards, the link to the homework is already in the description of this YouTube channel, YouTube recording. And it has the link to our original meeting, the orientation meeting. And when I set it up for next time, you'll see here's the current homework, here's the upcoming schedule, and then here are the previous sessions and the link to their videos as well. Okay, and nothing left to say, but have a great rest of the week. We'll see you in 2 weeks at Myrt's Book Club. Happy family tree climbing, everybody. That's a wrap.